listening to KMRE-LP 102.3 FM in beautiful Bellingham, Washington. Your community, your voice, your station. I'm Matt Benoit, and this is Are You Serious? It's a comedy podcast program where we like to have comedians getting real about life and about how some of the darker things in their lives intersect with their comedy. So my guest today is Ryan Cuddihy, a Bellingham comedian.
Hello.
How's it going?
I'm doing all right. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing okay. You know, it's funny because as I've interviewed through the first two episodes of this program, I've interviewed people, and then at the end of it, they're like, you know, I should have turned those questions back around on you. But I was like, well, it's too late now.
Yeah. I'm only going to ask, how are you?
Okay,
I just want to know.
I'm doing okay.
Okay.
You know, could be better, could be worse. I got up not too long ago. I woke up at like 11:30, and it was like, okay, I got to be here at 1.
Well, I need to hear more about this.
Yeah, this is riveting. This is what the people tune in for. This is what it's all about, you know. Yeah. I got up, I ate some oatmeal, had a breakfast sandwich.
Oatmeal and a breakfast sandwich.
Yeah.
I was going to say oatmeal is the least interesting thing you could have eaten today, but True. Breakfast sandwich, okay, breakfast I'm sandwich. Riveted again.
Took my vitamins, you know, brushed my teeth, the usual stuff. Checked my email, had no responses from anyone.
Yeah.
Which is ultimately disappointing. Then checked Facebook and had 15 notifications.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, quite a few. And it was...
Big man.
Big man, that's right. None of them were actually important, but, you know, such is social media. Let's see. So we're going to talk about you here, obviously.
Oh, wow.
That's why you're here, right?
Well, now I'm all bashful.
Oh, okay. So, but first of all, a little background, because I feel like, again, a lot of the comedians, we see each other regularly, but we don't really hang out that much. You know, some of us do.
Well, no, we all do.
Just
like,
not with me.
I don't think I've seen you at all the gatherings.
Gathering, yeah. We were both at Joel's housewarming party.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
Nice to see him get pied in the face.
Yeah, that was, I didn't really care.
That's all Lee stuck around for. Like an extra, you guys stuck around for an extra, like, 35 minutes just so he could...
That's the thing is, it was whipped cream in a pie tin. It wasn't a pie. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this a bit. If I'm going to see someone get pied in the face, I want a well-cooked, glazed crust breaking across their chin.
You want a full deal.
I want effort and time put into a beautiful pie, and I want that to hurt them.
I think it's worse. I think the worst thing you could do is if they had to bake the pie themselves.
Oh, yes.
And then know that no one's going to get to enjoy it. So no matter how good or bad you make this, it's just going to get wasted on your face.
Wasted on your face.
Wasted on your face.
My first comedy album.
Wasted, yeah. Oh, man. That bit you do about previously working at Whole Foods is really great.
Yeah, thank you.
That's going to be a good bit. I mean, you haven't written it yet, but I assume...
I have written bits about that.
You did talk about you quit Whole Foods because your feet hurt.
Okay, that is an oversimplification of a complex medical issue that caused my feet to hurt and me to want to quit. All right, no, I was actually my toes were going numb after 2 weeks of working there, and I worked there for like 4 months before a doctor told me like you need to sit down more.
So I mean, you got to a point where you were actually losing feeling and circulation.
Like immediately.
Wow.
And It was going up my feet, and I was like, I'd like to keep both my job and my feet, but, you know, Sophie's choice.
So I'm starting to think I'm depressed. I started noticing it when I would just tell people about my day, and they'd be like, oh, you sound depressed. And then it escalated, and I just would walk into a room, and people were like, oh, you look depressed. And I really need to cut this off before I smell depressed. I'm just hanging out and be like, oh man, what smells depressed? not me. And, like, the dog looks sad.
As all good therapy sessions should start, what was your childhood like? What you said? Were you your only child, or?
No, I have an older brother and an older sister with about 6 years difference. So I fell into like the younger kid stereotype. I would say something dumb, everyone would laugh, and that would feed me.
Okay.
It would give me strength.
Mm-hmm.
Both my older siblings kind of had some tension with the parents at times. So like anything that could ease tension, anything that could give me a little attention, I would try to flip that around as much as possible.
Okay.
But overall, like a nice little family.
Mm-hmm. That's weird how you said that, but your parents split up. How old were you when they?
I think it was like I was 13 or so, maybe
Okay.
a bit younger. Yeah, they were never married, but at a certain point, like they just split the sheets, is what they say, and moved out. I distinctly remember that going down, and it was one of those weird things where like everyone else was crying, and I wasn't. But like the thing that made me the most uncomfortable was my brother was crying, and I had never seen that. It was very much like I'm not supposed to see this.
Yeah.
And that was the main focus in my parents announcing they weren't going to be together. It was like, man up, brother. No, like not that way. It was just it very much like spooked me.
Yeah. That makes it sound like your parents were professional wrestlers. Man up, brother! Like I don't know what.
I'm trying to get better. I really am. I started looking for a therapist, and I did a Google search for therapists in Bellingham, and there's a bunch. So I sorted by closest because I'm real lazy. So I just want to get a walking distance therapist. But the only one there is specializes in treating athletes. So if I want to be lazy about therapy, I'm going to have to convince him I'm an athlete. And I don't know how to make that believable. He's a weird therapist that like he specializes in getting athletes mentally healthy so they perform better. So my theory is I only have to go to him until I feel up to walking somewhere further.
What are your earliest memories of seeing comedy, whether it be stand-up or other types of comedy? Like, what's your earliest recollection of,
If we're talking comedy, just any type of comedy, I was 100% raised on The Simpsons. Like, I remember I would get hurt, and then they would put me in front of The Simpsons to calm me down. There was this line from The Simpsons where Homer goes back in time and he accidentally sits on a fish and kills it. And I got hurt once real bad and I had to go to the hospital, and I was bleeding out my nose a lot. And I kept repeating the line, which is, I wish I hadn't killed that fish. And it was like calming me down and just confusing all of the doctors.
He's like, man, what happened here? What happened to your son?
We need to find the fish.
Yeah.
We need to get an x-ray here.
May have gone into his sinus cavity. We don't know.
Yeah, they did have to go into my sinus cavity and pull out a blood clot. That was getting real bad.
Wow.
Later, they cauterized the inside of my nose. Smells bad, by the way.
I would imagine.
Burning nose flesh is one of the worst types of flesh smell, I would assume, because it's so close.
Yeah. You can't like cover that up.
No, you
It's
can't.
in
You
your
can't
nose.
just.
Yeah.
Can't just waft it away. It's all up in there. If we're talking about like earliest time stand-up comedy came into mind, like Seinfeld was also part of that. My dad liked Seinfeld, and he would put on the show that would have those little snippets of stand-up, and then like blue-collar comedy was so present in the culture that I watched it twice probably, and everyone picks their favorite, and then you move on.
But who was your favorite?
Ron White.
That was my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. If you talk to any person who's currently doing comedian stuff, they're gonna be like, Ron White is the best one. A fun thing to do is argue about who was the worst, because that's a much less clear distinction.
Yeah.
Me and Lee Cox have had a ongoing argument where I say Bill Engvall is the worst. He's just the worst one.
Okay.
He and my argument is he's doing the same thing as the other ones are doing, just not as memorably. So Larry the Cable Guy, I don't think he's great, but he's doing his thing better than Bill Engvall.
Okay.
Bill Engvall is half committing to a bad idea. It's still just experiences with comedy, my parents would take me out to see stand-up comedy shows in Seattle. I had a Giggles Comedy Club. That was there.
Who was the first like professional comedian you recall seeing?
I feel like I saw Todd Barry. Is that
Yeah.
Okay, that's a comedian.
That's a comedian. Yep.
I know, and I know it is. I just
Yeah.
didn't want to get his name wrong.
Our Bellingham's own Randall Ragsdale was in the audience for the crowdwork tour that ended up on Netflix.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw he was the big name that I remember, but a lot of times it was just open mics.
Mhm.
I would go to an open mic, and one of the things that got me into comedy is I was like 10 years old at the time, and they brought me up on stage because they noticed a 10-year-old was sitting up front and had me tell a joke.
Nice. And did that joke? Do you remember what the joke was?
It was something I couldn't say on air.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
It was just whispered a dirty joke in my ear, and I was like, I don't think I should. And he's like, no, do it.
And I imagine it got a huge
Yeah,
reaction.
it got a big reaction, and that was kind of my first experience.
So what did that feel like? Did you like, this is cool, I should figure out how to obtain more of this?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
From that moment, I went up on stage. I was like, I want to do that again, and I want it to be on my terms. I want people to laugh because I had made them do that.
So that seed was kind of planted when you were 10. When did you actually get up on your own and do stand-up for the first time?
14.
Wow.
Yeah, 14 years old. And I worked for a while on setting up my first set, probably like a year of coming up with jokes, and then like, no, that's not good enough. I won't go up with that. I remember actually I practiced in front of some family, but and then I practiced in front of a friend, but I didn't know if their feedback was genuine because they're not
your
gonna
friend, right?
friend. But I remember I practiced in the living room of my friend's house, and his brother was like up the stairs listening, and afterwards he came down and was like, "That was really funny. That made me laugh. You're good at this." And that was the first, like, he didn't have a stake in this, so I was like, okay, that's genuine. He didn't need to tell me that. I should probably take this to stage.
Mm-hmm. So where did you first perform?
Giggles Comedy Club,
Okay.
Seattle.
Was your first set, did it go as well as you had hoped?
Yes. Yeah, it was. I know I had it easy because I was 14 and I looked younger.
Yeah.
So there was a novelty there. But since then, I've seen 14-year-olds go up and bomb, so that makes me feel a little better. I went up. I had okay. Oh, I actually had a joke about Trump at the time.
Wow.
And just other. It was an apprentice joke at the time.
Right.
And jokes about the rodeo and just classic observational stuff, nothing groundbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept forgetting my notes, and I put my notes far away from the mic, so I'd like run back and forth and got a laugh off of that. But overall, yeah, I was like, okay, immediately I started planning on going up, new material, try some more.
Nice. What was the reaction you got from other comedians?
That is so different from comedian. Like a lot of people just swoop in immediately and like are the nicest people in the world who are just gonna. And you see that no matter your age, when you go into comedy, there are some people who just want to help out, and that's always wanted to. I want to be one of those people. When new people come onto the scene, I was like, I've always wanted to help them like people help me.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get into weird sort of like quasi dad relationships with people where they're twice my age at that point, and they are like mentoring me through that. I remember
Keep calling you little man, and they want to take you out for ice cream. And
right,
like,
yeah.
This is weird.
And then there are other people who are just kind of like, get this kid out of here. Like,
Yeah.
this is our thing, and he's getting easy laughs because he's not as tall as us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
His voice is still changing. Yeah.
And which I got a lot of laughs off of. But I remember I was in a competition once, and the person I was up against, while I was on stage killing, and the person was in the back of the club just doing a version of my bit, like to the other comedians, just like, I'm real young.
And you could hear it?
No, I couldn't hear it, but
okay.
later people told me that he was just mocking me, doing a version, and then he would pause for the same laughs. He was probably doing a pretty good bit by the sound of it. But it's just like people didn't like me, at least some people, because I was young. There was some people who like pushed me to go focus on school more.
Yeah.
Which,
like, hey, you're a freshman in high school.
yeah,
Probably.
valid argument.
Yes.
But yeah, so I got the whole gambit of supportive to kind of like a jealous reaction.
So now you've been performing for how many years?
Coming up on 12 years.
Wow.
The way people have been kind of teasing me about this is I have essentially a middle schooler worth of comedy.
Yeah.
Also, there's a couple different metrics. A middle schooler, a dog that's about to die, and then like a velociraptor who's in its midlife crisis. All of these are the amount of time. And all of these seem appropriate metaphors for my comedy career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Especially that dog.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess in the 12 years you've been doing it, what was the longest period of time where you didn't get on stage?
Months. Like I would say like maybe 3 or 4 months right after high school when I was going into community college. Because I failed high school. I flunked out of high school.
Yeah.
Because I was focused on comedy, and I was at a crossroads of, okay, do I give up on school and really try comedy, like move to Seattle and then eventually move LA or New York and just try to make this work, which seemed so attainable at the time, or do I make my parents happy and just go into college for a bit? Went with college, one of my bigger regrets.
So you actually did not graduate from high school?
No.
You didn't?
No.
So then did you get...
I got a GED and went to a community college. And then I would only do paid shows for a while. Like, if a paid gig came up, I would take it, but I wouldn't be putting in the effort. And I just started to lose my contacts.
So what did you end up studying at Western?
Anthropology. And I will say the only reason I went into anthropology was because I talked to a girl I was really into at a party once, and she suggested anthropology.
And of course, I imagine things haven't necessarily worked out with either anthropology or the girl at this point.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, probably equally
disappointing. Yeah.
Lack of progress there.
Okay.
It's weird I'm doing comedy because I have a speech impediment. I've had a speech impediment all my life. I stutter a lot, and I get caught up on certain letters and words, and I have a lisp, which I really should stop telling people about because it's way more noticeable. And it was weird. Growing up, I couldn't even say my name right. I was saying my name is Wyan for far longer than it was cute.
Around like 13 or 14, people were like, all right, say your damn name. If there's one thing you have to be able to say, it's your name.
Yeah. So you can go into a job interview and be like, I'm Wyan. Like,
Wyan Cuddihy, nice to meet you. Let's get business done.
Did you feel that performing, getting up there and doing stand-up, did it help or hurt your lisp or stutter at all?
I had been through 6 years of speech therapy, probably about the time I got on stage. I've never really had a stutter issue or once I mention a lisp on stage, I'm almost guaranteed to screw up one line. It's just I start thinking about it too much. And the rest of this interview is going to be terrible because I'm thinking about it. But yeah, it's never been too much of an issue, and it's one of the things I feel like because I had a lisp, I didn't like talking in front of people, and that's that got so built up over time that I needed an outlet, and going on stage it's different enough from interacting with people that I could just kind of let loose.
I'm kind of a pessimistic person. I think you guys caught up on that. I'm kind of pessimistic, and the best way I could deal with that is I would always go to my dad because he's such an optimistic person. He would always be able to turn me around and just recharge my optimism. And lately, that's just been really rough. That's been harder to do. He's been a lot more dead. He's dead, and it's harder to keep in contact after that. Like, he's not responding to my emails. I don't know. No, he's dead. I feel like that's the big reveal in my stand-up set. Is my dad's dead, and that's kind of a classic reveal. That's like the death of a father figure. That's a narrative. Really, the only way I could make it more classic is if he wasn't dead. It turned out he was Darth Vader. But then that would kind of make me Luke Skywalker, and I don't really fit that, I don't think. I've always seen myself as more of a C-3PO.
Tell me about your dad a little bit, and like what kind of guy was he, and what kind of relationship did you have with him?
It's such a hard question, just because at different points in my life he was been different to me, and he is a big guy in terms of personality. He helped me out a lot when I was starting comedy, because he would help with the networking that I wasn't great at. He'd go in and buy a beer for every one of the comedians and make sure I was getting along. He never had good comedy advice, but he'd always be there giving me comedy advice. He always told me to smile, and that's something that's still with me. Like going on stage, before I do hear that, because he would stop me before I go on stage and just remind me, like, smile, because people like that. So that's something that's still there.
The one thing I really remember about my dad, the one thing that sticks with me, is he was always so proud of me. And I would say irrationally proud, because I was giving him nothing to go on. Like, seriously, he'd be proud of the dumbest things. I'm like, oh, Dad, I read a book. Oh, that's great. You're amazing. Hey, Dad, I clogged the toilet. Good job, son. You really gave him hell. I actually told that joke at his funeral. Got a bigger laugh than here.
What kind of man was your father is the question that comes up a lot. My vision of him has changed so much since he died, because before he had that larger-than-life persona where you always thought he had an ace up his sleeve. He always had a plan, and then he dies, and it's just like, where was the plan on that one? Where was your ace? Like, you look up his sleeve, and it's just a Pokemon card, and it's like, that's not helping anybody. It's
not even a good one.
No, it's just a Pidgey. It's like, what were you planning here? So much he didn't figure out, and there was so many get-rich-quick schemes that he was in the middle of, right, where he just didn't see it coming. Mm-hmm. And it's like, all right, well, what am I supposed to do with not only like all the stuff you left behind, but my memory of you as someone who's on the ball? That's kind of gone now.
My dad, he died of a stroke, which is weird. Strokes are weird. Like, I remember talking to my dad's doctor about this, and he was trying to comfort me and say, like, a stroke can happen to anybody. It's not your dad's fault. Like, anyone could have a stroke at any time. And I think that was supposed to be comforting, but it was terrifying. Because think about it. A stroke could happen to anyone at any time for no reason. Theoretically, everyone in this room could have a stroke right now. No? Okay, one of these times it's gonna happen.
He was paralyzed. He could only move his eyes, and that was inconsistent at best.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 24. Okay. But what's so crazy about that is I remember being in the hospital, and I was sort of a mess. I had been there 4 or 5 days at that point, and I was just like kind of like rattled. And a nurse came up to me, and she was like, "You doing all right?" And I'm like, "Not really." And she's like, "You know what? I know what'll help." And she leaves, and she comes back with a cup full of Doritos, like nacho cheese Doritos. She gives them to me, kind of pats me on the back, and looks at my mom and goes, "Kids love Doritos." And it's just like, one, I hate Doritos. I hate them so much. And I was just eating them to make her feel like she helped. But two, I was 24 at this point.
Yeah.
And
it's not like you're 10.
You're
in college, right? At this
I
point,
was, at the end of my college career, and it was just, it just showed me like how much I was reverting at this point. Like I was definitely acting like a child because I didn't know what to do. Right. And, but apparently that came across in my face too. It made me feel, I guess, a little less of a man.
Yeah. But it also make you think, like, you don't have kids, do you? Like, that nurse is like...
Yeah, maybe just she needs glasses. That could be the case.
Oh, man. So, I mean, like you said, you felt like you reacted to your dad's issues kind of by, I guess reverting a little bit to being more childlike. I mean...
It was just scared.
Yeah.
Like, everyone, when they're scared enough, you start to lose your higher faculties. And you can't just... It's so hard to hold yourself together with poise when you're like, okay, my dad's gone, but at the same time, I have to make a decision about what that means.
I mean, how quickly did everything happen? He had a massive stroke, and then how long after that did he pass away?
We had 2 weeks to decide what to do in terms of if we wanted long-term, life support, where it basically we weren't sure if he was ever going to be able to communicate in any meaningful way.
Yeah. And he didn't have like a will or anything?
No, he didn't have a will. He didn't, like I said, no plans. Okay. Just...
How old was he?
He was 62.
Okay, wow, okay.
Or between 62 and 64. Okay. I don't keep track of my parents' birthdays because I am a bad child.
Okay.
Don't ask me about my mom at all. I have no idea what's going on there.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, once you had 2 weeks to decide, like you said, and the ultimate decision was to not prolong.
Yeah, he was also, it was a severe locked-in syndrome, but also he was bleeding into his brain. So there was really no choice from the get-go. And my dad was always afraid of hospitals, and he always hated hospitals. His parents both died in the hospitals, and he never wanted to be there. Mm-hmm. So it was just pulling hair out of my head the entire time. Like, he hates this. If he has any sort of awareness, it's just he hates this. He also... Like, one thing I knew about him always was he hated things in his mouth, and he had a set of tubes just in there 24/7. I knew he would hate that, and it was just it was so much butting heads with everyone else who was like, he'll pull through. He's an amazing guy. He can beat this, but like I immediately went to he shouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm. So. Did he pass away in the hospital, or did you...
No, we got him home.
You got him home? Okay.
Yeah. Got him in his bed at home and pulled the plug on that, and then went outside and hit a few golf balls. Because, we were bored at that point. No, it was a good ritualistic thing. He was big into golf. I'd just go outside and hit some golf balls outside his room. That was fun.
Right through the window. This one's for you, Dad.
I thought about death, and I have my ideal way of dying. I'd like to be in my bed, surrounded by all my friends and family, and just get peppered with arrows. Just so many arrows. Each one non-lethal, but over time the body just can't take it. Like Boromir in Lord of the Rings, just so many arrows.
The last thing I said to my dad before we pulled the tubes was a joke. That's my personal joke. That's the one that I'm not sharing with anybody else. But it felt good to go out on a laugh. I don't know if he heard it. I'd like to think he did, but I had my goodbye to him was what our relationship was, which was kind of joking around, having some fun.
So I guess after his passing, I mean, I imagine there had to have been a void there. I mean, how did you get through that? How did you process the grief?
I had a lot of friends. Like, that's a big part of it. I had a good community around me, which is so I feel bad about, because so many people were helpful to me. They just knew what to say. And then I've had friends since then who have lost family, and I'm so much worse than them. I just, like, after my dad died, my biggest fear became that happening for friends of mine. Like, they're losing their parents. I'm always scared about that when I'm, like, hanging out with someone. When they get a call, I'm like, please don't be their family member. Please don't. I guess back to your original question of how I was dealing with the loss of my father. Comedy was such a big part of that. I remember within the first week, at a certain point, I had to leave the hospital just because I couldn't sleep there and go home for a day and come back. And that night, it was the whole point of me going home was wash my clothes and actually get a good night's sleep. And when I do that, I went home and I just grabbed my laptop and I stayed up all night writing jokes.
Really?
Just immediately. And I probably got down like 15 to 20 minutes of material in that one night. Almost none of it has seen the light of day.
Yeah. I mean, was it related to what your dad? Or
Oh,
was
yeah.
It
was everything. It's like,
everything?
my dad is in the hospital. I'm scared, and here are my jokes.
Okay. Because I was going to say, I mean, do you, obviously then you do subscribe to the idea that laughter is really, at least emotionally, a major source of medicine for you personally? I mean, I don't know if medicine's a strong word.
Yeah,
but...
that's my only problem with it. Medicine is a strong word. Saying it would like fix the problem, or saying it could treat an illness.
The Patch Adams effect is not.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. But I would say, kind of like the lack of laughter, the lack of it. It's the same thing as not eating while you're sick. It's the same thing as not sleeping. If you remove laughter and humor from your life while you're in a crisis, you're not taking care of yourself. So it's a necessary part of getting better, because it's just part of life.
So you said you took down 15 to 20 minutes worth of jokes, and you said almost, has any of that seen the light of day?
Oh, some of it has, but it was just so much of it was, I don't know what's going to happen next. That once he died, it's just like, well, that joke doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Punchline.
You had like
different punchline now.
There's like the heading, if my dad makes it, if he doesn't.
Yeah,
kind of.
And there was a lot of stuff like that, and too much of it was in the moment of me like glorifying him, like, oh, my dad's so tough, he's gonna pull through type stuff, where it's just like that's more wish fulfillment than funny. But yeah, there's a ton of it that also I kept. Still do today.
At the time of his stroke, your dad was working as like a school counselor, or what was he?
Yeah, he worked for a whole school district as just like a consultant in counseling. So he would help various troubled kids, and he'd also just come in and help the general population with little shows, and he would take them out for activities. So he was popular. I'm not saying like he's more popular than your dad, but he was pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, kids are scared of my dad. He's not friend. But he's about the same age as your dad was, so I mean,
okay.
And he actually, it's funny you talk about your parents getting older and the fear of them dying. It's like he just talked to me about like, wanting to make sure he has a will, and it's sort of like, hey, look into this for me, and it's sort of like, you want to do that, but at the same time, you don't want to do that.
Yeah,
it's conceding.
You don't want to just acknowledge the possibility. Just the idea of preparing for things makes it so much more likely in your mind. But really helps people out. Everybody make a will. I haven't made a will, but I'm gonna live forever.
Yes, you heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
So 500 years from now, you can go back and listen to this,
and I'll still be a struggling comedian, still paying my dues.
Yeah. So kids sent your dad while he was in the hospital.
Yeah, they sent him.
Cards.
We got hundreds of get well soon cards. Wow. So many of them, and I would go through them for hours at a time, just looking through and just laughing because so many of them were dumb. They were just bad drawings and like really off message in terms of get well soon cards. They just wouldn't always. They would lose focus halfway through and start drawing pterodactyls and start telling us about their day. And I'm like, what? Okay, come on. Yeah. This is not the point here. So I take those, some of my favorite ones, and I take them up on stage and I share them with the audience under sort of the thesis statement, kids are dumb. Yeah. Kids are dumb, and this is proof.
This next one, it's not about the drawing or anything. It's more the words that mean a lot to me. This one says, "Ho pop, you fell deaf. You are a raising prison. Your phone." And I like this one because it shows me that no one's screening these. They're just going right through. This kid's speaking from the heart. A real dumb heart. And this last one, this is my favorite. Just a really simple spelling error, but it makes all the difference in the world. They meant to write, hope you get well soon, but they wrote, hope you get well, son. Which I like to take it that way. I prefer it that way. I like to think there's some kid out there who really cares about my dad and is a real baller about it.
There was something at my dad's funeral, which there was additional notes from kids that they made into a tree of hearts, and they put it in the hallway outside my dad's funeral. And I was standing there, I was looking at this tree of hearts, each one with an individual message, and I was just laughing so hard. Same reason, kids don't know what they're doing. And I must have looked like I was inheriting a lot of money to people that I was just cackling in the hallway outside my dad's funeral. But just simple ones that each one is like, Mr. Mike, I love you so much, but there's no space between so and much, so it's just so much. There's one that just says I sad, and it has the saddest drawing I ever did see.
Really horrible. It's just a face, frowny, dark eyes.
And that's something I love. It's just so funny to me that kids aren't capable of really expressing emotions eloquently.
This is not complex.
It just kind of tumbles out of them sloppily, and I love how honest it is.
Obviously, they're funny in general, but I mean, when you see these cards and you're not up there using them as props on stage to convey the bit, do you feel emotional ever looking at these cards?
That's the thing, is now these are more associated with the stage than with my dad. I've spent more time taking them on stage and talking about them than I have looking at them while in grief. And honestly, that's probably how my dad would like it, though. I've taken these things that were reminders that he's gone, reminders that he went through something terrible, and I've kind of reappropriated them into something that makes other people laugh and makes me feel good about my abilities.
You know, you wrote down this material and you were processing stuff. I guess at what point in doing stand-up did you feel that you could incorporate that material in any difficult personal situation into your routine? Was there a period of time where you didn't, or was it pretty much like
immediately?
Right away?
Immediately. There was no way I was gonna get on stage and talk about anything else.
Yeah.
Because that was what my life was about at that point. My life was about losing someone, and I would have been hitting the open mics in Seattle while he was still in the hospital if I had the time. I wanted to express something, because you're so powerless in that situation where it's just a health issue, where it's not anything you have to fight. So it's just being able to take this thing I'm struggling with and go up on stage and show it to people and change it, and add that positive association of laughter with this thing that's gonna always be in my head.
When you're finding the funny in the darkness, I mean, is that something where even after you tell that, is it just a feeling of relief, or does it still, either in the creation of the material or the presentation of it on stage, is it something where you still feel emotionally hurt by it?
It's an interesting thought, because it's not something I always think about. Because sometimes you know material that's well worn enough, it kind of becomes rote. It just kind of comes out of you. Definitely in the writing, I'm struggling with it, and you could get teary-eyed with certain concepts. But once I go up and do it a few times, it can feel cathartic, but I don't really think about the actual feelings I was going through at that time. A lot of times it hits me later that, like, I'll think about how it felt when my dad was in the hospital, and I was just trying to get him to communicate with me by moving his eyes, and how hard of a struggle that was. And that's not really something I think about when I'm telling the jokes. That's what the jokes are about, but they're just jokes at that point. And that's just something of me doing the material for long enough that it's not really serving the same purpose anymore.
Have you ever done this bit with the cards or the stuff when you're talking about your dad dying, where it just doesn't work for an audience? Do you ever have that happen? Or is it generally something
I
where
don't think I've ever had a flat set with the cards.
Yeah. Prop comedy, man.
Prop comedy. I used to have a hammer, and that went great too. Yeah, I've had a reaction to the dead dad stuff that made an audience member tear up. And I've had, most of the time I get a really positive response, like hugs afterwards, which I hate. I don't like hugs. If you see me, don't touch me. But a really positive response of like, hey, I've gone through something like that, and people kind of share their grief with me, or like, hey, cheer up, buddy. But people say that to me regardless of if I did my dad material. But I have gotten a few negative reactions of that's too close to home. That's like they tear up, they start crying, they leave the room.
Right, because maybe they can relate to it.
Yeah, they relate to it, but they're not at the point where they want to hear someone else make light of it.
Right.
Which I never had that point. I was making jokes in the hospital. I was making jokes at my dad's bedside because that's just...
Do you think that's, I mean, for you personally, that's just something that is innate within your personality, and it's just sort of like, it's also probably a defense mechanism.
Yeah, I just don't know what else to do. I don't know. I remember, and I had a bit about this, is like everyone else was struggling for meaning, trying to find meaning in it, and I was just turning everything into something else.
Yeah.
I would just transform it from this bad thing to this good thing, where everyone else was trying to find some sort of substance in the bad thing. Like, people kept having dreams about my dad, and like someone would talk about, oh, I had a dream where he got up out of the bed and he walked out, and I think that's meaning that he's free now, or that he wants to go. And another person had a dream that he was on his boat, and he's like, he's happy now. That's where he's peaceful. And I thought, and I had a dream that I was at his funeral, and Roger Ebert showed up, the film critic, and then he accused me of being gay. So that's the dream I had.
That's really
So
weird.
I don't know what type of meaning I can get from that. I'm kind of uncomfortable with any...
That sounds almost like your dad was a big source of masculinity in your life, and it was gone, and now you're like, maybe I'm gay.
No, I do not want to to dissect that.
Okay.
I just want to be like, yeah, maybe let's talk not about dreams. Maybe let's just not search for meaning, because sometimes things don't make sense and don't mean anything deeper.
Yeah. Wow, that is a weird dream.
Yeah. Why Roger Ebert? I mean, I trust him.
I mean, did you like get up on stage, grab the mic, and be like, what?
No, it was like as he was walking in, he shook my hand. He's like, "Sorry for your loss," and he leans in and.
So, but Richard Roper wasn't there. It was just...
no Roper.
Okay.
I trust Roger more.
Yeah.
No, I don't trust Roger more.
Yeah. No, not Roger Moore. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think people like dark humor? Like, why do people laugh at things that on the surface aren't necessarily something that's going to induce humor?
It's gotta be at least partly fear. Like, we're so afraid of the things that make us uncomfortable, and if we can experience them and explore them in a safe place, it can be exhilarating. Like, yeah, like, okay, that's the classic, like, put a wacky nose, wacky hat on something scary, and now we don't have to be scared. To see someone's grief and to know that it's not just like a pit that no one ever gets out of, it's hopeful. It's helpful and hopeful. That's something I always like, is when I can see someone who's struggling with depression, but I can channel it into something creative and constructive. It makes me feel better about my potential problems later.
So at this point, I mean, what are your ultimate goals with stand-up? Would you like to do that professionally? Is that kind of...
I would love it.
Yeah.
I would love it. That's the thing, is I've got my middle schooler comedy career of almost 12 years, and I'm starting to wonder if I can do it professionally, if I have the talent, if I have the drive, but there's nothing else I'm good at. I'm not good at anything else, so I'd really, really like a professional comedy career.
So is that kind of the primary motivation to keep doing it? Or, I mean, do you feel that you need to do comedy in order to keep yourself in a good place mentally?
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's just a shame that creeps in when I take breaks. There's just like I call them breaks, but they're not breaks. It's just something stops me from getting up there, or I'm just overwhelmed by something else. It's not a break. It feels bad not doing comedy, and I'm always still writing. So then I just start getting this pile of material that's not getting to people, and it's just like, what is the point at this point? If I can't share my ideas, what am I doing? So I'm always going to be doing it. It doesn't matter if I'm getting paid. That I'm going to try to get up there and get ideas to people, because when I don't, I just feel like I'm not a person fully.
Yeah.
That's and that might just not be me being very well adjusted, but I like that connection to other people, and that's not something you can get any other way.
Mm-hmm. So obviously this episode is centering partially on death, on you lost your dad.
I don't see the correlation there.
So I mean, but like, what's the closest you've ever personally come to death?
I had a very serious surgery based off of a birth defect when I was born. Mm-hmm. So I was, it's like 2 out of 5 kids with my problem die just immediately. So off the bat, I was razor's edge. I was right on the line between life and death off the start. And then I had some surgeries when I was in my early teens, where I had to have like a metal bar put in my chest because it was collapsing kind of. I wouldn't say that was super close to death.
Yeah.
But it gave me a lot of good bits.
It's a major surgery. So
yeah, it was a major surgery. Yeah, it gave me a lot of good bits. I had a dumb joke at the time about being part robot. Yeah. Made some Wolverine references because I had metal in me. Mm-hmm. Said I was afraid of magnets. Real hacky stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, I got kidney stones once, and I felt like I was gonna die.
Yeah, that's I think a lot of people's reaction.
But overall, I just threw up a lot.
Yeah. So what? We talked about, people laughing at darkness as a reaction to fear. So what do you fear most in life?
Not accomplishing things is a big one. That's always been a big I am afraid, and I hate this about me because it's so condescending. I'm afraid of having just a day-to-day job for the rest of my life. I hate that about me.
Yeah.
That people can be very happy and very accomplished and very satisfied with their lives, and it's just a scary hellscape to me. Mm-hmm. And that's also like people can get satisfaction from building a family, and it's just like I don't get it.
Yeah.
And it's just a scary endpoint that could happen. Since I started working at a retirement home, a lot more fears have become there, because.
Does it make you not want to get old?
Actually, the opposite.
Really?
That's one of those things where when you're young, it's so easy to be like, oh, I'm never gonna be old. I don't want to be old. Die at 40, and that'll be great. And I've seen this now working. These people want to keep living, and they have reason to want to keep living because they're still doing things. They're still people. It's just they have so many problems that are scary.
Yeah.
And
especially if you're there mentally, then you obviously.
Yeah, but they always say who wants to live to be 98 years old? Like, who wants that? And then the answer is a 97-year-old. Yeah. That's one who wants to keep living, and you get to the point you want to keep living most of the time. Mm-hmm. It's just there's a lot of people dealing with very intense pain, and I don't want to be stuck in my body, especially after seeing my dad that way, where it becomes literally a cage. And then the opposite is just as bad, where your body's still there, but you can't remember things. And if that's more scary to me, because if I can't mentally change my surroundings, if I can always use my imagination to make something better, to make something scary less scary, but if my imagination is turning against me, if my mind isn't able to comprehend such things, I have no idea what I would do.
With those experiences that you've had, both in your current job, seeing a lot of elderly people struggling with things, and then your own relationship to having one of your parents pass away.
Are you telling me to kill myself? Is that where you're going with
That was
this?
not going to go there. You took it there. So with your experiences in having someone very close to you, your parent pass away, and then looking at a lot of older people, I mean, the idea of death, do you think that there's, or do you hope that there's life after death? Or, I mean, what kind of person?
I just can't.
It's hard to...
That's one of the things where I just can't force myself to believe there is. It makes no sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think I hope there would be, because I can't imagine it would be good.
Yeah.
But that's just me being a pessimist. That the world is just not super great from what I can see, and I can't imagine an afterlife would be super great.
Yeah.
So
especially one that would never end.
Yeah, that's the thing is even heaven, I feel like with infinity, I would eventually go insane, and then maybe you'd come back, but then you'd go insane again, because you can never, with that much time, you'll never find something that will be happy forever. There's always a problem. I've kind of only been doing new stuff lately.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually had a streak at Green Frog of like almost a couple months. There's like 2 or 3 where I slip up, but new material.
That's
like
good.
every week.
That's good. I mean, I feel like I'm never writing enough. Like I'm doing too many things where I'm like, I should be writing right now. That's one of my fears too, of like not accomplishing anything and feeling good about my accomplishments in life. Like I didn't do enough, or like I have the ability to do more stuff, but I'm not pushing myself.
I'm definitely there with you. And I think that's just, that's a built-in fear for creative people is, I'm not creating enough. Exactly. Because we so much define ourselves by what we put out.
And when you do something really good and creative, you're like, I just want to keep doing that.
Yeah, chasing that high.
Yeah. I think this is good. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh yeah, of course. And I'll come back when my mom dies.
That's okay. I hope that's not soon. I'd be like episode 3, Ryan Cuddihy. Episode 6, Ryan Cuddihy. So the last thing, of course, is do you have any shows that you're booked on coming up anywhere?
I don't. It's so sad. I used to be good at comedy. I did Bumbershoot once.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Actually, I did 3 times. Wow. Not anymore. I can pitch the past when I had shows. Yeah. I can plug those.
That's the thing about comedy too, is like even if you attain some level of like notoriety with a certain show or you're on this, it's like it's dated. It's almost like, what have you done lately?
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely. I took breaks off for college, and it ruined me in terms of being able to sell myself. But if we're trying to look on the bright side, I don't have any booked shows coming up, but I do have some podcast projects I'm working on.
Okay.
There is a project I'm working on with Lee Cox called Comedy and D. It's comedians playing D&D. We have several episodes ready to ship out. We just need to finish editing them. We also just started working on another one with Lee Cox, is something called The Lost Tapes of Dr. Komos. It's a podcast about a mad scientist and his monkey companion. I play the monkey companion.
Okay.
And they're not getting along, and Dr. Komos is interviewing for new hyper-intelligent animals in his lab, and Monkey is not a big fan. Kind of a complex premise. We have several episodes of that, and I'm working on editing those and getting out. So if you have any interest in those, I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about my dead dad on them.
Okay.
So if you loved this, then
the monkey in the show's dealing with the death of his father.
I do want to put that in there.
Okay, that'd be good. Because I feel like if the 2 major characters, you gotta develop the monkey. You gotta like he's going through some stuff.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And yeah, so if you just follow me on Facebook, I'm sure I have a Twitter. I'm sure I have one. I think it's at Cuddihy Ryan. I will update when those projects come out, and I'll let you know honestly if they're good or not. They're probably gonna be okay.
Okay, and of course you can also see Ryan Cuddihy and local open mics around the area. The Green Frog, of course, most Monday nights. Yeah, depending on how many people show up and what the bump list looks like. Yep. It's been crowded lately.
Oh, I almost always get on. I show up early, which people hate.
The other thing I wanted to do, and I didn't have Clay Christopherson do this, but the idea was trying to like, what's my theme music gonna be? Intro and outro music. So with Timmy, I just had him do his own outro music, and I forgot to ask that for Clay. But if you want to hum some sort of ditty for outro music.
I
feel
have
free.
to hum?
You don't have to. You can kind of do whatever. You can bang on a chair. You can make some sort of musical sounds as outro.
Like singing?
It's up to you.
Well, that's the thing. I have no idea what to do in this situation because
Okay.
the only thing I've ever been able to sing, like my voice cracks and goes away if I try to sing anything else, but I've been able to sing Pearl Jam parodies.
Okay. So you can sound like Eddie Vedder. Is that
Not well, but it's the only thing I have enough confidence in to even try.
okay.
Yeah, I got nothing other than
Okay.
like just clapping my hands separately real fast.
That's still a beat. All right. Well,
Thanks for having me on.